Why hello there, my lovely LEGO addicts. Today is a very special video, very dear to my heart, and we will be discussing basically just Lord of the Rings sets that I would really like to have seen made. This ended up being such a long list. First of all, anything Lord of the Rings do make, I would be happy. I probably will purchase. Secondly, I have a long list, but this is obviously made with my preference in mind. And if you have been following this channel for any length of time, you probably know that I absolutely adore buildings. So buildings will feature very heavily in this list. I am not hugely into army building, so army building sets will feature not very much in this list. I understand that there's a very high demand for it, but if you have a high demand for army building sets, you're welcome to make your own list, though I do have some sets that do cater to this purpose. There is a lot that I've left off that I would still really like. If something isn't featured and you were hoping for it to be featured, I mean, feel free to tell me, but also it probably was thought of and decided I had to draw the line somewhere. So I have an order for this list because there is quite a few little categories. It was very, very easy to go, oh, all of these UCS sets, £500, yes, make them now. But I also really wanted to think about some smaller sets that may be really nice to have, just like 10, 15, £50 ones, just not anything under 100 basically, because I know that's not technically small, but theoretically by this point, under £100 is a small set. So I've tried my best to also make those. My suggestions generally will go from this is the smallest one, plus you can make it slightly bigger by adding this. And I also have a few sets that aren't movie based sets, they are book based, because there's a few that I would really like, but also are never ever going to be made, but I would really like to just shout it out. This list, as you have seen from the title, is a Lord of the Rings list. I have not watched the Rings of Power, though, I mean, let's be honest, Moria/Khazad-dûm sets, bring them on, but I haven't watched the series, so it feels a bit hypocritical to make a list based on the, you know, sets there. There is many that would be great, like anything Numenor would be fantastic, some ships, if that, you know, Valinor, but that's really difficult to capture in a tiny set. But I didn't want to feature them necessarily because I don't know them off by heart and I probably won't watch it anytime soon. So there is that. I'm just terrible at committing to watching anything. So let's start with the big movie sets. I think this is an easy list. Let's start off with one that I mentioned on the stream but I couldn't find a word for. I would like a UCS Meduseld, so Edoras. The Golden Hall would be such a fantastic set. It's such a prominent feature location in the movie. We're there for quite a lot of time. There's also a really good opportunity for some really main characters to be featured. So I'd really love a Meduseld with interiors, so possibly one that folds open or modular style where you can lift the roof off. I think that would be fantastic. And I would really like the minifigures Theoden, Éowyn, Emma, probably Wormtongue, ideally Harmer, which is a very obscure reference, but he's such a main sort of driving force for Theoden in the book. And then Gandalf the White, but wearing a grey cloak. Gimli, Legolas and Aragorn. So huge amount of like character selection. I think it would be a fantastic way to get Gimli, Legolas and Aragorn in their like elven attire. Wormtongue would obviously be a really cool addition. I'd really like to get another opportunity to get that figure. He was obviously made with the Tower of Orthanc in 2014, so he does exist. It'd just be really nice to have him in this like setting. And then we have never seen an Éowyn. Come on, one of the two main female characters. Where is Éowyn? This would be the perfect opportunity possibly to see her in a white gown, which is so iconic. And I would really like a custom mold for her hair. But thank you. We need Éowyn. Cool. That was the first suggestion. This is going to be a long video. Strap in, guys. Next up, really obvious suggestion. Bag end. We need it. It's obviously. So there is a few ways you can go with this set. Either you can make it an upgraded version of what we've already seen. So obviously we've seen the version for The Hobbit, but you can basically build it as that sort of size of set, slightly more detail and, you know, greenery, but you can make a UCS set super easily with like modular compartments that kind of slot together so you can take all the rooms out and have a look in them and still have it based in The Hobbit, or you can base it in The Lord of the Rings and you can have like Bilbo, Frodo and Gandalf, just a really small assortment of minifigures, but like again, really detailed, just set in a different time. Probably have a little sign, no admittance except on party business. There is some subtle differences, there are some scale differences you can go with this, but as we know from pretty much every round of ideas recently, there's always a bag end and people want this set. It's so iconic, so please can we get another one just more detailed? Thank you. Then next up again, I feel like this is all buildings. These are just the UCS buildings that I want, basically. But the prancing pony, iconic. We need a prancing pony. This can be a huge set that you can make a modular style, because I think this is a perfect set. Because it's like a pub for men, it can be modular sized. And I think this is a really important thing that I want to stress. In my head, this is the perfect set to create for the Lord of the Rings lineup that can also be purchased by a wider arrangement of people that want a sort of historic pub in their city. So get a prancing pony, but make it modular compatible, just like we've seen with the Sanctum and the Daily Bugle, because I think that is going to make it incredibly appealing to pretty much any adult collector, and I would really love to see that. Personally, I would have to get two, but that would be fantastic. So many chances for some nice signage as well, ideally printed, like the the sign hanging down. Obviously, you need to get some good characters in there. If it's a size of a modular, then I would like to see a decent amount of minifigures as well, a bit like with the Sanctum. There was quite a few minifigures there. So obviously we need Butterbur, like you can't have the, prancing pony without Butterbur. But I would really like Nob as well. Obviously Aragorn in his ranger attire, the 4 hobbits. And then there is an opportunity to like expand with slightly more obscure book characters. So we could have the Southerner, we could have Bill Ferny, random Underhill villagers, hobbits, and some random men that were there, or some dwarves that were on the road, the travellers that are there, because that pub's really busy that day. So we can have some figures to really fill it out and make sure that there's good references to everything that happens in that place. Obviously, there's going to have to be a ring piece in there, because that scene is just so important for the book. Yes, you could possibly have a back room that is hobbit sized for them to like stay in. You can just go wild. There is so much potential in that scene, in that set, and I've talked about it for so long. This is how excited I am about it, and I really want it. Next up, and I'm going to only cover this really briefly, is the Green Dragon. Now this is slightly more niche, I suppose, because this is the Hobbit pub, so it would not really be modular compatible because you'd want the scale to be slightly smaller, but it's still a really iconic location. You could have Sam and Sandeman from more like the book, but you could also have more of the movie setting where you have Rosie and just hobbits and good time and a lot of custom mugs of beer that they can have. That would be really fantastic. It'd be lovely to have pubs. I think we don't have enough pubs as official Lego sets. So that is just a really quick thing that I wanted to cover because, it's just, they keep longing for the Green Dragon, so I feel like it had to be made. The next set, this is a set that I've always wanted to have seen done in Lego form, and I've always been quite worried that maybe it's just too ambitious, but I've seen what they've done with Rivendell, and I think the designers are up to it more than anything. But I'd really like to see Lothlorien or Caras Galadhon. If we did Caras Galadhon, then you could also have maybe a side build of the Mirror of Galadriel, sort of like on the ground somewhere, so you're going to have that whole scene. The opportunity to have Galadriel, Celeborn, Haldir, so more elves, please change the elf hairpiece, and just the whole fellowship except Gandalf. I think that would be fantastic. There is so much opportunity there. It's so like ethereal and elvish in the books, and even in the movies they've done a fantastic job. It's just so beautiful and I would really love that as a set. I also think it would really appeal to a wider audience, not just fans of Lord of the Rings, because it's going to look really special and it's going to look really magical. So I really think there's a lot of people that just like elves and magical builds that would really like a set like that, because it's basically really beautiful ornate tree houses. So I think that's going to really appeal to a lot of people, because the elves, the Friends elf sets are actually quite popular in a niche area, so it'd be really nice to have something like that, but like 5 million times better and huge. That I just need it so much. Please make this. I just always wanted to have seen it. I've seen some mocks and they come close, but not quite as close as I'd like to get. And also, if Lego did this, you know for a fact that it's going to be really well done and sturdy, which is the main problem with a set like this, because it's hard to make. So that's my main sort of wishes. I do want to really quickly mention, I think an updated Tower of Orthanc would be amazing. It'd be nice to have a slightly more improved, ornate version of it, and maybe even with a bit of landscape around it and some more Ents. I don't feel as strongly about it, just because I think they've done a really good job with the Tower of Orthanc already. I could probably mention Barad-dûr as well. I've seen some concept leaks, they look fantastic. If they make it, I'm sure it would sell really well. I just don't feel as strongly about that location as I do about any of the Elvish ones, or the pubs, evidently. That's clearly my priority. So that's why I wanted to really quickly mention them. There is some honourable mention in more detail later, but that is what I just wanted to say. So now onto the small movie sets. So the small movie sets. I've really tried to go for iconic scenes or iconic moments, but really focusing in on like a moment there, because you can make anything massive, that's really easy, but actually what's quite hard is narrowing down on the scene and omitting things that were there, especially when the whole fellowship was there, just choosing to represent a few characters. I found that really difficult because really my opinion is more characters, yay, but sometimes I also only want to spend £20 or £50, so these are probably not £20 sets, but I just really tried. So the most obvious one, I think, is the Bridge of Khazad-dûm. We need a Balrog build. I think there's been some fantastic mocks, and we just really need that iconic moment of the Balrog and Gandalf on that bridge. It would be perfect to both play with and also display. Few of these sets especially are very linked to that concept that Star Wars and Jurassic Park have had, which are, and now Indiana Jones, which are these dioramas with a quote. And I think a lot of the Lord of the Rings one really like lend themselves to this, but nothing more than fly you fools with the Bridge of Khazad-dûm. So we need this. There has been some good mocks, as I've said. Basically most of the things I'm mentioning, there mocks out there, so if you're desperate for this and you don't want to wait for Lego to get their act together, then go out, go forth. Then I think a really cool different type of Lord of the Rings set would be the Argonath. This would be not a minifigure scale, probably micro scale, and have like 20 or 30 centimeters high Argonath builds with the river in between, with 3 boats, with like representations of the Fellowship in there. Not necessarily the figures per se, but even just a brick build one. I think that could, I'm sure there would be a lot of people that are like, oh no, I don't want that, they have to be minifigures, but I think it would be a really beautiful diorama. It would be one of those gifts that you could get to people that don't technically collect Lego, but would still really love a Lord of the Rings gift, and this is like an involved I build it myself gift. So I think the Argonath would lend themselves really well to it. Basically maybe sort of like Statue of Liberty style, but better faces, and possibly with a quote. I don't know if that's helpful. I don't think it needs it per se, because it's just iconic. It's more like a feeling moment rather than like a quote moment. And then this is a bit of a dark one, and I nearly put it in honourable mentions, but I still think it would be really cool. I don't think Lego would make it, but the final confrontation on Orodruin would be so cool. Let's have that little outcrop of rock with the lava underneath. Maybe have some light bricks underneath, some tiles, so it looks like lava. Have Frodo, have Sam, have Gollum. Maybe have Gollum holding the ring, but like attached to a transparent piece where he's just falling backwards. With Frodo, maybe his arm outstretched and a panic look on his face. Have a bit of dirt on their minifigure faces. Have their proper outfits. Like, it's so iconic. I think that would be such a cool display piece. Yes, it's a bit dark because Gollum literally is dying, but like it's, I don't know, I kind of got the idea and I couldn't let go of it. I was like, that, I would have that on display. It could be a really small diorama as well. So it'd be kind of like a £20-30 set, but 3 really iconic minifigures and just that moment. That moment. It's amazing. Then next up, I had to find a way to include the Mumakil because they're awesome. There's some excellent mocks out there. Again, I've seen many at conventions, but I needed a set that included them, but I didn't want to go for the Battle of the Pelennor Fields just because massive armies and lots of things, and it would be very expensive, and I was trying to make it a small set, but also create some more opportunity for different figures that we haven't seen before. My thought was it could be the battle in Ithilien. So we could have a small campfire, a coney, Sam, Frodo, possibly Gollum. He does leave at that point, but you know. And then some rangers of Gondor and Faramir, as well as some of the Southerners and Mumakil. It would be really cool to have it. It'd probably be like a £90 set because you have to have a brick build Mumakil. Depending on how expensive their license is, I don't know. But that would be such an iconic moment. Sam loves seeing it. Mumakil's for the win. And then if you want to do army building, you could get loads of these sets and have loads of Moomer kills. So it's perfect, really, for people that want to army build. And also we need a Faramir. I'd like to have him in his green attire, it'd be nice. So that is a set that would be slightly more pricey, but not like an UCS price label. Okay, next up, and this is also mentioned on the stream, I wanted to find a way to get the 9 ring wraiths in one set. This is never ever going to happen. They would never do 9 ring wraiths. Like, I just don't see that happening. But we could have the Fort of Bruinen scene. I mean, I would say I would like to have the book version where it's Glorfindel. We would include Aragorn, we'd include the 4 hobbits, obviously Frodo on the white horse of Glorfindel, and then the 9. This wouldn't be necessarily a very cheap set because of the amount of minifigures I would like to add, but it'd be a cool build. It'd be quite difficult to make a comprehensive set because you have to somehow find a way to make a river and like trees, but I think it's a very iconic scene, and it basically ends the first book of the Lord of the Rings in the sense of like the old way that they divided the books. So it would be really cool to have that, and it is sort of like the best way to get the 9 ring wraiths. Also, I wanted to stay away from the sets that I've done already because another really good option would be to go with Attack on Weathertop, because you could redo that set where you make it slightly more intricate because the old version isn't super intricate, 4 ring wraiths, and then maybe include like the Witch King in his white attire, the way that Frodo sees him, like as the White King with the crown. So then you covering basically both the Black Riders as well as like the Nazgul in their like on the other side form, basically. So that would kind of cover more bases. But as I said, I was trying to stay away from things that LEGO has already done. Next up, an opportunity for some interesting figures would be the crowning of Aragorn that we see in the movies. We need that iconic dress that Arwen wears there. We have had some beautiful brickhead representations of this, and we need King Aragorn. It would be fantastic. It'd be a very difficult thing to do. I think if you wanted to make it a smaller set, I would say include Aragorn, Arwen, and Gandalf. But maybe if you wanted to do more, have a look what iconic characters are there, because there's quite a few, and put them in those attires. It would be a really good set for like collectible minifigures, basically. I would love to see that. Collectible minifigures. I would love a collectible minifigures Lord of the Rings set too. Thank you. Like series of just beautiful figures. Yes, please. I found it harder to come up with a way to build that set. Like the build in that would probably be secondary. But if you look at that scene, you kind of see some cool detailing, some like obviously set in Minas Tirith, so you could do something iconic with that. But I mostly wanted to include this because I want lime dress Arwen minifigure. It's not much to ask, I think. I want better. Also, I want her to have a different face because the one that she has in the Rivendell set I don't love, but I'll have a detailed review of that set coming later. Then next up, a set that I again don't really think we're going to ever see, but that I would really like, is Sailing from the Grey Havens. I think to me, many tears are shed every time. I don't think we need any of the actual buildings as much as I would love it. I think you could do a dock and a ship, which is enough. Also, because if you have one ship, that means that if somebody wants to build lots of them, then you can just buy lots of the sets. I think it'd be really iconic to have Galadriel, Gandalf, and Elrond, as well as Frodo and the hobbits, just because obviously that's what makes me cry in that scene, so I need all the hobbits there. You could add Bilbo as well, because obviously he's there, but like, he's slightly less memorable, I think. It's just the 3 rings. You can keep adding characters all the time, basically, so I'm trying to like narrow it down. It again probably be like £100 set because of the amount of characters, and also the boat is quite large, but it'd be really beautiful and iconic, and I would really like a set of that. I mean, ideally I'd love to see the whole Grey Havens, that'd be fine. I'd love to see Círdan, but I think that's really definitely never gonna happen. But it'd be beautiful nonetheless. And then next up, and this is basically the last of my small movie sets, and this is the one that some of you have definitely asked for. It's the Witch King's demise. So we need a fell beast, we need a Witch King like with his cool helmet piece, and we need Éowyn and Merry. I love it. Éowyn, I think, is probably my favourite character, definitely my favourite female character of the Lord of the Rings. Very closely followed by Galadriel. There is something upon rereading Éowyn when I was a bit older that I just really connected with, so I feel quite strongly about including her, but she has to be done justice. I think that scene is just fantastic, and we definitely want to see that in Lego form. I don't know if they would because it's quite a dramatic one. You could even have Théoden and his horse in this. Basically, that is it for my obvious movie sets. I have some book sets and also some honourable mentions that I think are definitely never ever 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 going to be considered by LEGO, but I want to mention them anyway because, as I said, I want them all. So let's go to those. There's only actually one book set that I could really think of that I wanted, just because we never see this in any adaptation really. Can I please have the House of Tom Bombadil? Because I really want Tom Bombadil and Goldberry as minifigures. Thank you. That would be fantastic. It's kind of just described. It seems a really cozy, safe, out of time place. I like buildings. I just want Tom Bombadil's house. And just because it's never appeared on screen kind of means that you've got free reign to create that, and it'd just be wonderful. I would really love to see that. There are obviously some other options you could go with in this section. Like, you could have more buildings in the Shire. You could have the house in Crick Hollow that Frodo moved to. So this is where I'm going to leave that list. But I have some honourable mentions. So let's go to those. So first off, Cirith Ungol. That could be a massive set. It could be just a Tower of God. It could be just the scene of Frodo in the attic. It would be fantastic to be able to get some more named orcs. So we could possibly get like Shagrat and Gorbag. We could have a Mithril coat, maybe even a Mithril coat torso. That'd be cool. But even just the way that we saw it in the Rivendell set would be fine. We can have Frodo, we can have Sam. There could be other orcs. You can make it bigger and even include the Watchers that Sam has to go past and create like the glass of like the light of a Rendell bottle thing. You could make it even bigger and include like Shelob's lair next to it, or have Shelob's lair separately. Again, I didn't include anything about Shelob in the list because we've had that already. Next up, I think an honourable mention that I need to say is Minas Morgul, because it's just fantastic and it's very menacing, and we only see it really briefly, but it'd be really cool to have like a set like that. I just think that would be more likely a macro scale build, because I don't think they'd ever do that like big enough, but that'd be quite cool to see. Similarly, on that vein, I think we could, I didn't know where to put this, but so many people mention it, Minas Tirith. Yes, I would like a Minas Tirith, but I don't think we're ever going to see like the proper city with the 7 rings. It's too big. So I think we'd only ever really see it as a like macro build or micro build, just because that means that you can make sort of like an architecture style out of it. And I think that wouldn't really do it justice for a lot of people. So then I think you're gonna probably have to zoom in into scenes that happen there. So like the scene where Denethor like burns Faramir or tries to. That's something that LEGO would never depict, but is very iconic, so that'd be very fantastic to have. We could have the scene where, you know, Denethor eats tomatoes. It's very highly memed, so that would be a fun scene to have. Just the throne room. There is many options for that. You could even have little battle scenes for army building purposes, but I didn't really know which one in particular to settle on, so I kind of omitted it from the main lists. But I thought I'd put it in here because yes, we want Minas Tirith, but I just don't think that any set is ever going to do a minifigure scale Minas Tirith, because that would be like over £1,000 or whatever. I don't think anybody would, I mean, very few people would be able to buy that. So I wanted to put it here. I have thought about it, you see. So okay, next up, this is an honourable mentions because again, I don't really think that they're going to ever make this as LEGO, but the capture of the hobbits would be fantastic. You know, we could have Lurtz, we could have a Gluck, we could have Boromir and Merry and Pippin. This would be perfect army building because you could have a few extra Uruk-hais in there. You know, it's that moment where Boromir like gets shot and dies, and it'd be nice to have more named orcs. So, or Uruk-hai, yes, okay, fine. So that would be a fantastic set, I think, to do it with. It's just unlikely to ever be made. I would like Grishnak somewhere as well, but there were very few moments that I could think of as a set. You could have the battle between Rohirrim and the orcs, but it's such a brief moment in the movies that I didn't think that would be a really iconic moment to use. But you could do that, and that would be perfect army building opportunities there. But you could have the whole like Rohirrim army. Okay, and before I go on forever, I had to mention this. I don't think we'll see this, but I would really like to have the last stand of the Last Alliance, which includes Sauron, Isildur and Elendil, because it's such an iconic scene. So much is determined by it. They're super iconic characters. I need a Sauron minifigure desperately. I was thinking you could probably make Sauron slightly taller by using those legs that they use on the Avatar figures, the blue ones. So they would have to do it very carefully, because if you don't do Sauron right, you're never going to live that down. But it would be a fantastic one to have, because we do need a Sauron minifigure. And I don't think there was any scene in the Lord of the Rings necessarily outside of that one where you really see Sauron in his like iconic armor. There's quite a lot of potential. You could have one elf warrior and one human warrior just to kind of army build potential. But it's a very plain scene, so there wouldn't be very much brick build accessories. So this would be basically like a minifigure pack, which would be fine. Give it to me now. Alright, that is the conclusion of my really, really long list. As you can tell, it's already long enough. I can add 20 other things, but I really had to draw the line somewhere. But do let me know which things you would really like, or moments that you want. I am sure I've missed many. I've already only narrowed it down to the Lord of the Rings. There's just so much potential there. I hope you enjoyed just listening to this. I am a huge Lord of the Rings fan. There is so much that I would like to see from LEGO. I really think they've done so much amazingness in the Rivendell set that it makes me very hopeful that if they do reboot the whole line, which it looks likely, but I don't know, they can do a really good job. So I just have very high expectations, and I am very picky. I will leave it at this. Thank you so much for watching. Please let me know if you made it to the end of this video, because I would be very impressed if you have. Thank you so much for supporting me. Thank you so much for being here and joining this channel, and I will see you super, super soon. There is many things coming. I'm very excited about it. Have a fantastic rest of your day, you lovely people. Goodbye. Howdo.